Welcome to the SPS Digital Learning Hour.
Brought to you by the Digital Learning and Assessment Department.
We're coming to you from a conference room in Central Office, bringing you the latest news in the Springfield Public Schools in regards to technology, along with inspiring interviews from teachers who are using technology in the classroom.
We'll also inform you of the latest updates, practices, and news as it pertains to our district. Whether you are new to using technology in the classroom or are a seasoned vet, we are here to help.
Thanks for joining us today. I am your host, Mike Thomas, and I'll be taking you through today's podcast. In case you missed it, Wednesday, March 7th is the first of the 3 We Learn Wednesdays. So you can go out to My Learning Plan, sign up, find out what sessions are being offered. It's something that we're planning on doing for 3 out of the 4 Wednesdays of the month. So I really encourage you to go out, check it out, and sign up. It'll be a great time of learning. It's all happening at the PD Center. It's all happening after school. And you'll have time to learn new tools and actually practice them. So we're looking forward to seeing you there. In case you missed it, we continue to update training videos on Microsoft Stream. If you are looking for specific training videos on Microsoft Office tools, please go out to education.microsoft.com. There you will find a plethora of ideas of ways to use the technology in the classroom by teachers who have been doing it effectively. In case you missed it, the latest blog post is out and it's all about this tool called Story Remix. Have you ever used Movie Maker and wished it was easier? Do you have a digital camera in your class that is collecting dust? Microsoft touts Story Remix as something that is designed to inspire educators and students to easily create and tell stories using photos, video, and music. Let me tell you, this tool is amazing. It is super simple to use, so much more than Movie Maker. It even comes with some pre-built out templates that you can use in the classroom. I encourage you to go out and check out the blog post. It's posted up on MikeSPS, We Learn, and then under blog, or you can check out the blog on Brightspace. Look for my name, Mike Thomas, and you will find the current blog there. That's it for In Case You Missed It. Coming up next, Hot Takes. Welcome back. So for this week's Hot Take, it's going to be a continuation of last week's conversation. So if it sounds a little off to you, it's because you missed the first part if you didn't listen to last week. So we've broken up this conversation we've had on reading online, reading digitally, over the course of 3 podcasts. So this is part 2 of that conversation, so take a listen.
Yeah, and I want to jump back real quick to, and as you're talking about teachers incorporating these technologies, I can't help but think back to when I was developing lesson plans in college. I can't remember ever incorporating technology into a lesson plan, right? So I guess that's kind of where I hearken back to that. We need to train the trainers,
Exactly.
Right? To make them comfortable so that when you're developing a lesson plan, you're able to incorporate a wiki page or incorporate a group discussion within a learning management system where that's to really, facilitate that need for digital learning for the kids.
But I also think like one of the things that we're talking about here is like when you're reading online, that's where we get most of our information nowadays. Like if you go back and look at studies from this past election cycle, most of the news that people got was not from CBS local affiliate or ABC local affiliate or even Fox News or MSNBC or CNN. It was online. It was Facebook. It was Twitter. And as we're starting to learn with everything else going on in the world, when you start going from one link to another link to another link, it could be taking you down a rabbit hole, which can be a whole lot of fake news. And so there is a lot of questioning, not only should we be reading online? Clearly it's the direction that we're going, but making sure that students understand, and even adults understand, that just because that's what it says online, if it's not a verified source, it's not, you have to take it with a grain of salt. That's why when I remember first starting out teaching and doing research projects, it was Wikipedia was the enemy because anyone can go in there and change anything on Wikipedia. But as time has gone on, there's a lot less changes happening with Wikipedia, so it's becoming more of a trusted resource. To the point where in some of these articles, I don't remember which ones exactly, like they referenced Wikipedia for information. Other articles that I've read use Wikipedia as a source. The local news channels have used Wikipedia as a source. I remember hearing a story a few weeks back where, I don't remember which affiliates it was, but they used online resources, including Wikipedia, as a source. And so it's like not only at this point, like we're not just teaching students how to read and comprehend, but also how to extend their learning so that what they are reading is real.
Right. And that almost extends into another thought that I had, Mike, in that some people are wary of digital reading because it eliminates, in some cases, the conversation that students would have when they're reading, whatever the assignment is. So another strategy that was given was, as students are reading, have them put together a chart with main idea, supporting details, what have you, but they could put together different points on the Wikipedia article that they're reading and still continue to have that conversation with their peers and compare, well, what did you think about this? And this is my source, and this is why I'm saying this. Have a debate in class and not eliminate that conversation.
So one of the articles that I was really drawn to, it was from Common Sense Education, which had some of those strategies that you're talking about. And I think the biggest one that we do really well as a district, is this idea of modeling how it's supposed to look for the students and modeling our thinking. I know from teaching and from observing other teachers when I've had that opportunity, how they go about teaching close reading ties directly into the students' understanding and their ability to pull out information. Before they're reading on their own and understanding on their own and annotating on their own, they need to be taught how to do it. And so there's many teachers in this district that are very good at working with articles on the computer and teaching the students how to annotate on the computer. One of the interviews I had recently was with a couple of third grade teachers over at Liberty, and what they do is they have the articles, whatever the students are reading, they post it into OneNote so the students can sit there and annotate in OneNote, and they can collaborate together between the two classrooms on the same articles that they're reading so that they are working together to gain an understanding
That's awesome.
of that reading.
Awesome.
And so modeling close reading is extremely important in what we're talking about.
That speaks to another point in the article, Mike, about in order to help students increase their comprehension, they need to be engaged in an active way. So that's a great example. They also need to reflect on what they're reading, which I'm sure would be part of that same scenario, and just constantly reminded to slow down. I think when we're used to skimming Facebook or Twitter or what have you, you get very much in the habit of scanning. And multiple articles did state that the difference in media was null when it came to remembering main ideas. But when it came to the details and specifics of the articles, that's where comprehension was not as high online.
And I can tell you, I can skim with the best of them. That was one of the skills. I don't know if you guys had to do thesis papers in college, but I had an 80-page paper that I had to write so I could graduate from my undergrad. It's just the way that they did it. I don't know about your programs, but
I majored in computer science, so no, I did not have to write a paper.
I had to write, I think, a 40-page paper, yes. But
so I learned how to skim really well.
Yeah.
So, but you're right. That's how we read today. Like, I can go on Facebook and I can go through like 300 posts in a couple of minutes just by skimming through and be like, oh, I want to read that. I want to read that. I don't want to read that. Same with like using like ESPN, for example, like skimming through there to see their articles. I can look at the page really quick and be like, nope, nothing interesting, and move on.
I'm thinking back, this is a long time ago, guys, but when I was in 5th grade, I actually had to take a speed reading course. And we sat there and they flashed sentences up on the board and you had to practice your speed reading, which is basically what everyone is perfecting nowadays. skimming, speed reading, same thing.
So that slow down is important, because you're right, you do miss key details, or you get your details wrong when you're trying to tell it back to somebody, because if you're just reading the first paragraph in the title, you could be reading about one thing, but the whole article could be about something completely different. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the harder things to do with reading online and reading on the computer is annotating itself. Like, using OneNote's a great tool. I know with MCAS they have some sort of annotation tool, am I right?
That's correct.
And so, like, being able to annotate well and with purpose is pretty important. And so, again, it goes back to teaching those skills. And then the students collaborating together, too, so that they can see if their annotations match up to, like, what is important.
Right. There was one part where they were speaking about different colored highlighters, and highlighting in a certain color for main idea, another color for details and whatnot. And then as the teacher went around, she could clearly see if someone was having difficulty figuring out what to highlight to begin with, seeing the whole page highlighted, she would know that that student needed a little extra attention. But definitely a new practice to learn.
Yeah, there's actually... there's in some of the elementary schools now, they're actually doing this thing called painted essay, which is exactly what you're talking about for reading, but they're doing it for writing. And I think that's where, like, reading and writing kind of go hand in hand, because it helps you understand. Like, if you know how to write well, then you'll understand reading better. If you know how to read well, you're going to be able to write better. And by using that skill that you're talking about with the highlighting and transferring that over into your writing, it will help keep your writing organized.
Like I mentioned at the beginning of our podcast, this is part 2 of our conversation that we had all about reading online. If you'd like to learn more, check out the show notes. That's where we've posted all of the articles. Coming up next is our interview with Sara Wright from Walsh Elementary School. So for those of you who don't know, Mary Walsh is the school that I got my start at teaching in Springfield before I've taken on this lovely position that I'm in now. And through that time, I've worked with many teachers. Sara is one of them, and she is fantastic in the classroom, and I'm glad we got a chance to talk and that you guys get to enjoy this conversation, so listen close.
I'm Sara Wright. I work at Mary Walsh Elementary School. This is my 4th year at the school. Currently, I'm a math interventionist, but for the last 2 years, I was in the classroom, 3rd grade.
And so before you came to Walsh, were you also a teacher, or was this your first teaching job?
Nope, I was teaching for 7 years in Jacksonville, Florida.
All right, so completely different state. So when you were down in Jacksonville, what was it like using technology in the classroom? Did you have any, or?
No, not really. Not like in Springfield. We didn't have computers. It wasn't one-on-one, but they would have a computer class, kind of like a special. Mm-hmm. So I was able to use a smartboard in my class for technology integration, but for the kids to be hands-on, they had to go to the specials, which had its pluses and minuses, I think.
Mm-hmm. So with the smartboard being that's what you had for technology down there, did you have a lot of interactive lessons, or was it more of kind of a projector?
No, I pretty much spent my whole day with interactive lessons on the smartboard, which was awesome. I was always elementary, so I went from 1st grade up to 5th in various positions, kind of, but we would always center. I mean, it was great for math manipulatives and online learning, and we got to use it quite a bit.
All right, so let's fast forward now to Springfield, Springfield is where you came after Jacksonville.
Yes.
So what was it like with making that jump to the classroom here?
So I was excited to see that Walsh had smartboards in the classroom, and unfortunately it's kind of aging here and not really getting updated. But for about a year, I could use our smartboard in the same capacity where it was, like we could manipulate lessons and learn from it and on it. But the difference here was that the kids have laptops that we could use in any lesson that we needed it to. So when the smartboard became kind of a projector site, it wasn't like we were missing out because the kids could go and transfer onto their own computers and still be able to do the manipulation and self-guidance that we were missing.
With the students being able to have access to the computers, what were some of your favorite lessons or activities or projects that you did with the students?
We really got into using Brightspace for our morning news and announcements, which was really cool. Instead of having it on a chart paper or projected up on my screen, they'd sign on to read the morning news and announcements, and it always gave them an activity to do. I'm not a big fan of rote morning work, so it would give them usually a link to a video that might pertain to a lesson that we did the day before, or maybe a heads up, like some prior learning that they could do about something we're doing that day. Sometimes it would tell them to do an activity with a partner, so you could see kids grabbing their laptop and moving next to somebody. So that was a really cool way to start our morning. I think that was my favorite thing. But I know that the kids really enjoyed it for writing time or reading time and science and getting on to using OneNote. They made Sway. They loved making Sway and PowerPoints too, but more of the Sway, they liked that. I don't know what they would say their favorite part was, but the morning news announcements was my favorite thing to watch.
Yeah. So I heard you say PowerPoint and Sway, but they really like Sway. What do you think it was about Sway versus PowerPoint? Because they are very similar products. And so what do you think was that big difference for the students?
I honestly don't know. For me, PowerPoint is so much easier because it's what I learned, and it was really hard for me to figure out Sway because I'm used to doing, the motions for PowerPoint, but they were pretty much learning both of those at the same time or interchangeably, and they found that it was much easier. Like it was easier for them to upload their videos and type and add their graphics. For some reason, it seemed friendlier to them, and they're third graders, so I guess they know what's easier. They just seemed to be able to animate them more and make them more personal. It was easier for them for some reason than PowerPoint. So
teachers out there that are listening, Sway is a very powerful tool that seems to be easier for students. Instead of, I know with PowerPoints, like when I taught PowerPoints, it's all about the zooms and the page changes and all the animation stuff you can do. And Sway kind of takes that away. Right. For the most part.
Yeah. So. But even with all that I was showing them, because I knew PowerPoint, look at what we can do here. Even with all that, they seemed to gravitate more towards the Sway. I think that they liked how you could scroll through it or add things, from page to page. It just seemed like they could take their writing that they had done and put it into Sway easier than on the PowerPoint.
Some of what you're talking about is this idea of blended learning, which is you have some of your work in the classroom, some of it you do wherever you can go with your laptop. What is your thoughts or approach that you would take with blended learning?
So I do truly believe in the hands-on, paper kind of messy, roll up your sleeves kind of work for the kids and with each other. And I feel like sometimes with the technology, they tend to do it independently unless I force them to grab a laptop and sit next to each other and build something together or send it to each other. I still need the cooperation and the collaboration. But I liked to use the technology when it was time to kind of publish or make something fancy and something that they could share or send to me or send to each other. It also kind of took their learning to the next step because it gave whatever they were doing a more polished look to it. So even though in the classroom we're making mistakes and learning from the mistakes and getting to the next level, then they go and use the technology to kind of, make a finished piece. It was pretty cool. It was a good way to use both instead of just one or, all of one and not the other.
So another thing that our listeners might know is you've presented now at the last 2 tech symposiums. Can you tell us about your experiences with that?
Yeah, that's been really, really great. I really enjoy being asked to present. I like seeing who shows up to them, and I like talking with the other presenters and learning from them as well. I think it's super important to share whatever you're doing, even if it's not the best thing in the world. It's just good to meet with other people and learn, and who knows, maybe someone can take what I've done and do it at the next level, and then they can share. I think one thing that I learned from Jacksonville is that teacher collaboration is like the most powerful thing. So I'm really glad to see an outlet that Springfield has for the technology, because it's honestly the best way to learn is from each other and what people are really doing in the classroom, what's working.
All right. So one of our final questions that we like to ask, it's a big one, so brace yourself. If you had the opportunity to stand in front of all of the new hires in the district, so every August before the school year starts, there's a week where everybody who's new to the district, there's a training that they go to. If you had the opportunity to stand in front of them, what would be your advice?
My advice would be to talk to other teachers that are using technology. Try something out with the kids, because the kids are the most honest. Like, I feel like if you were to try something on your own, you might get too afraid or think that the kids couldn't handle it. So just try it with the kids. There's no harm in that. They'll let you know. They'll let you know what they like and dislike. So my advice would be to talk to the other teachers and just try things, and maybe not try it all right away, but try something that you think sounds interesting and doable, and not to use the technology as a babysitter.
Those are all great advice.
Okay.
So thank you again. I know we are in the beginning of the school day, and I know you got lots of things to do, so thank you for taking the time.
No problem. Thank you.
So a lot of times after interviews, we take time to reflect on it. I feel a little strange, I'll admit, that I'm reflecting on my interview with Sara, but as always, it's great to talk to teachers who are working in the district, who have gotten their start somewhere else, and they've come here and they've just been very pleased with all the opportunities that being in Springfield offers. Listeners, you have a great opportunity in working in this district. There are districts out there right around us that don't even have the same technology capabilities that we do. And you do. You get to take advantage of them. So it's great to hear how she was doing it, and it's great to hear that perspective from someone who spent time outside of the district and has come into the district at a later point. So this is the part of the show where we wrap up what we talk about, and I am very thankful that you have chosen to listen to us today. Our goal is to provide you with informative and transformative information for your teaching practices, and so that you can hear what amazing teachers are doing in this district. As you and I both know, we don't get to spend much time outside of our own classrooms when we are teaching. So being able to go out and interview people is a great way for us, for our department, to really reach out and help all of you out there in Radio Land learn more about what's going on, and maybe even be inspired yourselves to try one of these new tools, techniques that you've heard. Like I've always mentioned, you can always reach out to us on Yammer. We have our own group there, SPS Digital Learning Hour. You can reach out to us on Twitter. I'm MikeSPSDLA. You can also send a snail mail email at dlasupport@springfieldpublicschools.com. With all that said, if you go and you use one of these other programs to listen to our podcast, as in iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, TuneIn Radio, please leave us a review. We'd love to hear that and see those comments too. But as for today, I'm Mike Thomas, and I will see you next week.